Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine.
Welcome, everybody, to Morning Magazine for this December 21st, 2022. It is 10:05 on the clock. I have your host, James J. Maloff here. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. At 10:30, we're going to welcome in Rock Larson, Wood County Veteran Services Officer. Looking forward to talking with him. Right now in studio, we have Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Shane Blaser. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, James.
Good to see you. Good to have you here.
You also.
And a big thank you to our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media also being here. Taylor and the gang, good to see you guys. We got a lot to talk about. Before we dive into that stuff, how you been, sir?
I've been good. I've been well. Keeping busy. How about you?
Doing the same here. This time of year, there is no downtime. There is no blinking. There is no, you find time to breathe, and that's about it.
Yeah, at least for us, we're kind of starting a new budget cycle, so we're in between the old and the new, and not a lot of developments happening at this point of the, between kind of the Thanksgiving and New Year season. So it's just battling snow and, and unfortunately tax season and having to deal with those type of things. But yeah, it's kind of the uneventful time of the year for us.
Yeah. Kind of wrapping a lot of year-end stuff and looking ahead to the next year.
That's correct.
As we're touching on those things throughout the conversation today, we had some great news break last night that I wanted to start with, and something that you and I have talked about quite a bit. We got some news about our dog park.
Yeah, so the dog park passed council last night, so they've approved it, approved the funding allocation for it, and so I think I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not for sure, but they might be out there working today, kind of clearing all the deadfall.
Really?
Yeah, so there's a lot of deadfall that needs to be cleared.
Yeah.
They've got some equipment that pretty much feeds the trees in there and turns it into chips, and they haul it away.
Yeah.
And, so it's going to be exciting now watching that develop, and we'll end up doing hopefully some drone footage this winter.
Oh, that'll be
more
cool. Yeah.
To kind of show that we've already got some as how it is now, and do some more this winter to show the kind of the progress of it.
Great to hear that they're even if they're not today, that we can get working on this that quickly.
Yeah, this is good. Tree work and those kind of activities are good winter work.
Yeah.
And so this is the time that's perfect to do those kind of things.
Did this pass pretty easy? I don't want to say easily. Was this something that the board, everybody kind of came to pretty easily?
Yeah, we talked about it Park Rec and Finance Committee, and last night there was really no discussion. But I think I appreciate the City Council, and they recognize the value of the dog park in the community, and all the dog lovers, and having that. We're a decent sized community, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have a dog park. And so, yeah, I think they recognize the value in that also, and I think that was a good thing.
The economic impact it can have, and the way it can pull people in and keep people here as well. Certainly, we've talked about before the importance of keeping your population numbers set, and keeping that going up and not down. That's something that any small town in America is going to worry about, let alone our own. When it comes to having dog parks, that not only is great to keep locals here, but when people are looking at coming here, one of the things that they're going to look at schools, they're going to look at jobs, and they're going to look at dog parks. They're going to look at the dog-friendly places.
Yep, and I always mention Kyle, and it's always about creating that sense of place. And so, dog parks are part of that sense of place, like libraries and in our riverfronts. We've got a lot of those things here in our community, which are an asset.
Yeah.
And, sometimes, I don't know, and, myself included in this, how well we do highlighting those assets. And I think that's important.
It also seems, important to mention this will create some work for us. That's always good. That's never a bad thing. And something to keep in mind as well is the economic impact of this, as I said, because that's important, especially in budget season, and something to keep in mind as well. And you guys just recently released your budget. The budget release. What those that have not gotten to see it or read it, is there some highlights off of there that we should touch on?
I've never been a big guy to do a lot of big projects, so there's nothing kind of like shocking that, wow, the mayor is actually doing that. For me, it's, we have our road construction projects in there, and, and the problem is with everybody dealing with, all of those parts and pieces, all the prices went up. So unfortunately, our tax rate did go up. And, we added 3 firefighters, which was needed. And so, there shouldn't be really any surprises in there.
When it comes to those things, it helps to have people in a position like yourself, though, be not just matter of fact, but of being able to talk about these things and tell the people about these things and connect the dots. You just worded it so perfectly there. You didn't just say we just hired 3 new fire people. We needed these people, so we hired them. That's what we would hope city officials would do. That's what we want. But we also know is the one thing people heard out of that sentence: taxes went up. So it's this balance that you have to walk sometimes of doing this. But I think Shane, you do such a great job of it. It's part of the reason why we wanted you in the spot.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But and going back to the fire department. The federal had raised Medicare reimbursements and some of those things. So we're hoping, and once we kind of get some historical information, we're hoping that those raise in reimbursements will actually cover the cost of the firefighters. So hopefully it's a wash in the long run,
right.
And which will be good for our community. And they're going to be applying for a grant, I think it's a Safer Sure grant, and hopefully that'll fund 3 additional firefighters.
Excellent.
I don't know. Our ambulance is, we live in a community where we have an aging population, and our ambulance is busy, and they go all day long and all evening, and there is not much rest for those guys.
Yeah. Since we've moved here to near the roundabout and everything, I don't know if there's a day that goes by I don't see an ambulance going through here. It's something that I kind of thought in this area to the points of what you just said there, but I don't think until I was in this chair that I really realized how common that is, how often it is.
Yeah, I feel so fortunate to live in a community, and because if I know I'm not getting younger, and if I have heart problems or things like that, I know the capabilities of our paramedic staff, and I know they can load me up in the ambulance. They can get me prepped and drive straight up to Wausau and drive me and wheel me right into the cath lab, and I'll be ready to go. And it's just amazing the training that they have over there, and how fortunate we're in the community here that they're able to perform those things in speed up the process.
Yeah. I know that we've also, recently we've had some of that taken away in other cities near us and everything. So we've been kind of helping with that.
Correct. Yeah. And so I believe that the way the numbers work out when we picked up these other municipalities around us, it averages out about an additional call a day. So it's not because people are concerned that we're adding firefighters because of that, and realistically we're not adding because of that. The numbers were showing that we were trending to needing additional staffing just to manage the Wisconsin Rapids aspect, but taking on an additional call a day by what we were receiving in revenue on the side, it's a good thing for the community because it helps supplement the cost of that service. It's being provided in the community. As
you mentioned, the aging population is certainly something to keep in mind when it comes to that and taking care of our residents. Just in general, it's great too. Coming, not that far removed from a pandemic and everything too. These are great services to be able to have and contribute to our community. When looking ahead, because this is the last time you're going to join us for the year, so looking ahead to 2023, are there projects in mind or the things coming up that maybe we haven't gotten a chance to talk about, or things that you're excited about personally that are coming up?
So I think for next year, it's obviously finishing the dog park.
Yeah.
We've got our road construction coming up, but there isn't anything really big and frilly. I did have a meeting yesterday with state officials, and it looks like we should be seeing an additional contract coming up hopefully this next year, and I'm hoping within the next decade, A Street will be all redone. We'll have a new A Street,
wow.
And so we're working with the state on that, and I'm looking forward to that. I think I grew up here, and it's been a long time since A Street's been redone. So I'm glad to see that the state partners are recognizing that it's time. And so looking forward to seeing that develop over the next year and see what happens there, and kind of seeing hopefully some plans, for at least, or some discussion on the first phase, which is on the south end of town by Tractor Supply and working to the north.
I honestly drive on A Street as little as possible. I take all the back roads. I honestly, it's not even the worst street that I've ever ridden on or anything like that. It's just there's enough where, okay, I'm going to go around. I'm just going to take a little bit of an extra 5 minutes and go around and that kind of thing. I have to say, though, I was about a month ago, I was talking about this with my daughter. My daughter lives in Point, and for those pay attention to the news, they were working on their main street up there, and a lot of headaches when it came to that. I don't live there. I don't want to. I haven't exhausted myself on the topic, so I don't want to talk about it like I know what I'm talking about. But everything I've read, everything I've seen, from their mayor to residents on that street, businesses on that street, that there was not a lot of communication going on. It seems to be the biggest crux of that.
Communication is huge. You have to communicate. Absolutely.
It's something that I know you take a lot of pride in, and it's something that you going forward, if this the East Street development does happen, that's something that you really want to grab by the bull by the horns kind of thing.
Yeah, we will, and there will be some public meetings and some discussions, because it does affect businesses, and it affects those of us that have to use A Street. And I myself, I avoid the expressway, so I love, especially Jackson being new. I like Jackson and Grand, and I spend my time there, and I just kind of stay off the expressway myself. And
go ahead.
No,
sorry.
I was just going to say, and we all talk about an expressway is an issue that's going to have to be dealt with too in the future, and I'm going to have to look at repairing and replacing that too. So I'll have to get on the horizon.
Yeah. As a side note, do any of you guys, and you don't have to actually answer this, but do you go out of your way sometimes to drive on new roads? Because I find myself doing that lately a little bit here and there and stuff. This new roundabout over by the City Hall, things like that. Like, I've been just going out of my way just to go and take those routes.
I like taking Jackson Street myself.
Yes.
If I need to go up to Rudolph or that way, I always come down Jackson Street, do the roundabout, and get on 34 that way. So I enjoy that road. And I've heard other people talk about it too. So sounds like it's been well received on Jackson Street.
Sitting here with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Shane Blaser, along with our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. And recently the city requested feedback on the community rail traffic survey. That came out last month. Have you gotten any feedback on that yet? And what have you heard or read? So
we haven't gotten a report back yet, but apparently it's getting near completion. I did speak to one of the engineers. They called and kind of wanted my elected position, and I personally said, my personal issue is the length of time we're blocked at crossing. I told them that, the horns, I can hear them, but I live far enough away. But I know that is near and dear to people that live close to the tracks. But for me, it's the length of time that the crossings are blocked. And he said, you'll be interested in seeing the report, because there are some very long times that those crossings are blocked. So I'm curious to see this report now and see, what those length of time blockages are, and if there can be a solution in the future.
I don't think I've ever lived in a town that didn't have an issue with trains. When I moved out to California, I was so excited. I've got the ocean here, the mountains here, all this stuff I'm excited about. I get in my buddy's car with him. We're driving 5 minutes. We're stopped by a train. I was like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Growing up as a kid in Chicago, there's trains all over. You got the L train, got all this stuff and everything. So I don't, it's an issue in many cities. We moved to Rapids here, and it was one of the first things the residents told us about. Like, you got to watch out for the trains. The trains are going to hold you up sometimes. I don't know if it's as bad as we make it in our heads or not. It is great to be able to have some data to go along with this. You and I, going back to Mayor Verwink and then to you, both the first times meeting you guys, one of my first questions was, hey, trains. So it's obviously been an issue for a long time. The city hiring this consultant, that's one step to trying to figure out a solution to this.
Yeah, there's been studies, and I think we just need to lay it all on the table. These are some options, and is this something that, and this is just, I'm just throwing this out there because I don't know anything specific, but is this something we go to referendum over and say, do we as a community want to spend money to address this? You can drive to Point, there's an underpass. You can drive to Marshfield, there's underpasses. our community just doesn't have a way to get around it, and we don't have an under or an overpass, just that one spot that, at least the locals would know to use that, and it would help relieve some of that pressure, because once that train clears, then you have to deal with all the traffic, and you can wait a long time waiting for different traffic parts to clear too. So I just wish we had a solution for that, whether it be under or overpass.
I know that, nobody likes to be late for appointments or work or anything like that, and that can be a crux of this. But the biggest concern to me would be ambulances and fire, EMTs, all these things being held up by trains. Right. I'm curious to see the stats of that kind of thing as well, because, that's one of those things. A lot of us think that and worry about that. I don't know how many times I've actually ever seen that happening. I know that years ago I saw a cop car with the lights on that were stopped at a train. That's the only time I've ever seen anything like that in my memory. Maybe I've seen it more and I just don't remember. But more importantly, you can't trust our memories. The stats are something we can look at. The data is something we can look at.
And I don't know specifically, but I can assume that that's probably a reason why we have a second fire station on this side of the tracks, because there's an ambulance there, and there's some personnel. So, but as a police officer, though, if you happen to get stuck on the wrong side of the track, and then you have calls on the other side, but you kind of know where to go, so you just look at what direction the train is going, and then you go to that crossing the furthest away from the backside of the train. But we really need an underpass, in my opinion.
I've often said that you are officially a Wisconsinite, that you are officially a Rapids resident when you know the ways around trains. Especially when we used to be in the industrial park. I've got like 2 different routes I could take to get to the station if I needed to, if there was a train in the way.
Yep, depending on the train.
Do you think it's realistic, the idea of an underpass? And I think we're all the Rapids people. I think are thinking of particular spots in their heads right now. In those spots, it's I can see one of them working out. One of them, it's a little harder to picture, but I don't think it's unrealistic.
Yeah, I think some of the struggle we deal with is that our railroad track is right next to the expressway, so it doesn't give you a lot of room to do things. Talk to people in Siegel, and they like to see one out on Bono Avenue. That's where they get stuck, or County F, Bono, whatever, and. Yeah, but for a city resident, I tell them that's probably not going to affect our lives much. And so, it's really trying to find that right spot. And then if it's manageable, and then being the expressway is a state highway, you're dealing with state engineers. And so it really becomes a big project. But we all know that it's a problem, and just not being able to access the other side of the tracks.
It's interesting to see towns like ours grow and evolve. And it's going all across the country. We started off talking about dogs, and 20 years ago, opening a dog park, I mean, maybe it would be a smart move. Maybe it would help you economically, but there was no real stats or data to show that or anything. It was more a luxury kind of thing, more as opposed to a almost necessity. Where we were talking about, different things as far as, more fire departments and these things. Didn't need them 20 years ago. Maybe you do now. Trains are one of these things that every city is kind of running into, because our country runs on trains and so vital to the economic impact of every place that's got a zip code in this country. But as we've evolved as a world, we don't count on trains as much, but we still have them, we still need them, and we do still use them. So working around that is one of the more interesting things to see cities do, how you do this. I know that just doing some quick studying and everything over the weekend, there was one city that tried to completely get rid of their trains.
Oh, really?
And that city is really, really hurting right now. They're begging for them to come back, basically. So that does not seem like an option, and I think most of us as adults can understand that. But it is one of those things that I imagine in the conversation somebody's going to bring that up. Well, there's a real pushback right away to something like that. So we're kind of got to learn to live with each other.
We have
find a balance.
We have a number of businesses that rely on rail. So we need our rail partners here, but we just need to figure out how we can address this train blockage. As for needing rail, we absolutely need rail here.
I think one of the positives with this subject is we're not talking about something impossible. It's not like, I have no idea how we'll ever figure this out. There are options. There are things that we can do, and all of us putting our heads together, working together, is how we'll come up with answers.
It'll probably come down to realistically how much we're willing to spend on it, and that's what it'll probably come down to.
Do you think, is working with these companies a part of this process, trying to figure this out with them, or maybe them fitting the bill on some of these things, like the idea of an overpass and everything?
Yep. So we haven't gone down that path yet.
Sure.
So we're just waiting for that information, and they're going to provide a lot of stats and statistics and those kind of things. And then plus, I don't know if anyone's seen them, but if over by some of the rail places, they've had like a machine set up, and it's on a pole, and it's got like an eye on it, and it's directed towards the tracks. And I saw one out on Bono Avenue here maybe a couple weeks ago, but and that's what they're using to monitor the number of cars, length, duration of the train blockage. So it'll be interesting to see those reports come back.
Yeah, very. If you have questions about the project, you can reach out to city engineer, our good friend Joe. Eichstedt. I always say his name wrong. Yeah. Eichstedt. Thank you very much, sir.
I mess up on spelling it.
Oh, thank you for that, because I feel so bad. Joe's a great guy. I always seem like I mess up his name. You can reach Joe at 715-421-8251. That's 421-8251 if you have questions or any concerns about this. I do wanted to bring up the, as we are getting bombarded by Mother Nature over the next couple of days, how our snow budget looks, how all of that is looking going into this winter season.
Yeah, it's going along. We plan for snow, but I think it's really important that people realize that they can only work so long, and so they can only be out plowing so long. And our intent is to get out there and get the main roads cleared. I know the street superintendent, Public Works Superintendent Paul Vollard, he works hard at that, and trying to manage the logistics of snow removal and clearing the streets, and trying to figure out what storm's coming next and how long is the storm going to last. And so sometimes the roads may not be as clear as we hoped they'd be, but they're getting at it, and they're going to get them cleared off. It just takes time and patience.
Had a couple listeners since the last time you joined us asking about garbage and recycling, not just when the dates of those are, but where to put their bins, basically, when you've got this kind of weather. We're used to putting it on our grass or in our front lawn, and now we have snow that has taken that place. Are there suggestions, or are there options for people? Obviously, your driveway can be a good spot. Sometimes you've already shoveled that more than likely, so that should be a flat area.
Yeah, and I've also seen people that clear out a little chunk of their yard by the street, and they'll use that for the bins. But yeah, there's not a lot of options, and the concern also is if we get snow and we have our bins out by the road and the plows come by, and then that snow knocks over the bins. So it's just this time of the year we have to be a little more vigilant on watching that, because the goal is, we don't want the drivers to have to stop and pick up every bin, because they'll never get done. Because the amount of bins they pick up in a day is just phenomenal. So they got to keep moving, and they try to keep moving, but they just don't have the time to stop and pick up every bin. So we just have to be a little more vigilant and pay attention. I
know we're a couple years removed from this and everything, but it's not lost on me. We just went through a pandemic, and our garbage and recycling was on point. Like it never stopped. Not every city can say that. We have to give a huge shout out and huge credit to them for that, the work that they did on that.
Yeah, our street guys, all our projects kept going forward. I even think of the guys, the staff driving the taxi cabs. That didn't stop. And I know at the fire department what they did to try to manage like the ambulances and cleaning them, because they had clean them, and yeah, it was a project. And all the city staff, and I'd say a lot of the residents around here in their jobs and in their professions, kind of endured and pushed through it, and here we are.
Yeah.
For me, it's time to move on.
Right on. Agreed. And it is time for us to wrap up the show. You're done for the year. Wow. This is the last time you got to talk to me for the whole year. You do got to come back next month.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I always do.
Always good to see you, sir. Wishing you and yours a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Taylor, to you and yours, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to all you guys as well.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, guys.
Thanks for being with us, guys. We'll take a break right here. We'll come back and we'll get into some great conversation with our friend Rock Larson coming up right on Morning Magazine at WFHR.